This is going to be a quick look at the 2017 Hyundai Santa Fe all-wheel drive ultimate 2.0 turbo. The biggest thing I can say about SUVs is they're selling like hotcakes. They are a dime a dozen, which means they're constantly updated, refreshed. Manufacturers have to constantly tweak them to make them marketable. In the case of the Santa Fe and the Tucson, I still believe these are some of the better looking SUVs out there because they have a very good style in terms of kind of looking like a car without making it too truckish or just outlandish to stand out. It's just clean throughout the front to the side to the back. But when you get to the back, you have a power liftgate. And of course, this is where people are going to be most interested in it. This is a two-row crossover in this model. And you look at this right when you get open, it is a chasm. It's really, really big. The width is excellent. The height is good. And the way that you get down the seats, you have to go into the back seats to lower them. It's all mechanical. There's no electronics back here aside from the electronic liftgate. So everything is really kind of a manual process, which means it should hold up a little bit longer. You should be able to beat the hell out of this pretty well, but it's not a flat cargo space with the seats down, and you really kind of have to move up the front seats a little bit to get the headrests to clear. So that's something to know. But overall, you know, this is super usable without being, you know, gimmicky at the same time. Let's face it, if you're looking at a vehicle like this, you're going to be getting down and dirty at the dealership. You're going to be touching it, you're going to be feeling it, you're going to be in your bra and underwear on the inside, getting all up in its business. But one thing you're probably not going to do is take a look at the underbody. That's why I'm going to take this over to Scott Turbowski, and he's going to massage the underneath with his eyeballs and knowledge. Scott, we are under the Hyundai Santa Fe, the Sport Ultimate 2.0 Turbo.
That's tough.
That is tough. And since this is about the 20th take already, what makes it the Sport?
It comes with basketballs in the trunk?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have any affiliation with sporting goods or sports.
Does it have a slide-out basketball hoop?
No, that's you're thinking of Kia, the official car of the NBA brand. But this chassis is shared with the Kia Sorento and Sedana.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, and I'm sorry, the Kia Carnival.
Oh, what's that?
That's the, I don't know what market it's in, but that's the minivan. The Sedona in other markets is the Carnival. So I like that name. I would prefer it. Maybe you can do a badge swap. So the strangest thing about this is I'm not going to go over every little detail. It's strut-based front suspension. There's not really a lot here. This is the all-wheel drive version, so you get a drive shaft. There's no use of aluminum.
Cockeyed drive shaft.
Yeah, it looks very... Yeah, I don't know why it's cockeyed, but I'm glad you pointed that out. The biggest weird part about this is it feels about identical to the new Tucson that we looked at. It shares the same transmission, the motor, and even the interior dimensions. It's the front area where you're sitting is almost identical to the Tucson. The only thing this has more of is total cargo capacity, but other than that, it's not that much longer, it's not that much higher, the approach angle's not that much different. It makes me wonder why they're selling two cars that are almost, you know, so eerily similar. What if you found out your wife was secretly on YouTube making fart videos? And she was like raking in the cash and one of the biggest farters on the internet.
That'd be pretty amazing. And she had her own clothesline.
Yeah, she would have to. Speaking of which, when is your clothing line going to launch?
It's already out.
Is it? What's it called?
It's marketed on all that social diarrhea websites.
Oh. Are you sending any special edition autographed?
No.
No, not doing that yet? The multi-link in this back end, like most cars, is very compact. You have a trailing arm. The half shafts look like they were sourced out of an electric motorcycle with dualies in the back, or two wheels. They are extremely small. The differential's small, but it doesn't need to be big, namely with a 2-liter. You're not putting a huge amount of torque and power to the back. But this on-demand system, as I found, and you're going to find after this, was very substantial in the snow. I enjoyed myself, especially with all-wheel or four-wheel lock, which I drove exclusively in. The back end, the only thing I'm going to note about this, and I've noticed this in older Hyundais, is the rear suspension feels like it bumps. There's not enough suspension travel in the back. And then when you look under here, these dampers definitely don't have a lot of travel.
They're very short.
They are very short. They're more on an angle. And I think that's one of the reasons why you'll feel under harder bumps, it almost feels like they're bottoming out or hitting the bump stop sometimes. And it makes it more harsh. But on most smooth pavement, I mean, it's like you can't even tell. But it's really when you get into the bad stuff. How do you take that filter out? Oh, you got it this time.
Appears to be soiled.
Nah. It's only got like 4,000 miles on it. Unless somebody was mudding. That's how easy it is to change a filter on the 2-liter Hyundai turbo motor. Everything looks good here, Scott. There's a lot of technology packed in here. You got direct injection. You got 270 horsepowers. There is an intercooler, which on the Santa Fe, I'll be honest, there's a lot more airflow to this compared to some of the other cars. There's a ton of airflow on it, and it's easily accessible as well. There's a ton of space in here as well, and we both know why.
Why is that?
Because you get your dream motor in here as an option.
A V8?
No, V6.
Oh.
A 3.3 liter.
That's half of my dream. I only drive V12s.
Oh. Yeah, which V12 you have now?
A bummer.
Which one?
8 Series.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
When did you get it?
I've had it for years.
You got
I only drive it in the snow, though.
Oh, it's your winter car?
Mm-hmm.
You have more cars than I do. I have no idea. I haven't even seen half your fleet. So, you know, for the most part, we've talked about almost every single Hyundai motor. They put a ton of money developing these because the deal is they're going away from larger displacement motors in favor of turbocharged 4-cylinders. And I gotta say, for an eco turbo, I like the 2-liter a lot. It doesn't.
You just like 4-cylinders.
No,
That's not
I mean,
saying much.
we just got out of the XC90, and I thought, you know, okay, that's kind of a cool idea, supercharger, turbocharger. They got all that technology packed in there, and it's like, and then you drive this, and it feels like a sports car.
You can feel boost.
Yeah, you feel something from it.
Shear-headed, you know, when it gets to a certain tightness, they just shear off.
Weird.
This is so someone can't steal your boost tubes.
Well, it prevents any boost leaks.
I've never seen. I mean, that's what it's got to be because feel how jagged that is. It feels like something's broke off.
Well, anyway, let's take a quick drive of the Santa Fe and see what it does in the snow. Oh, it's such a nice time to have the Santa Fe because it's scheduled perfectly for the first snow in my area. And if you're not from an area of snow, then you probably wouldn't be that interested in an all-wheel drive vehicle. But this is the perfect time to test out a system that can be extremely handy in these type of situations. Feels like the all-wheel drive system is doing a really good job in terms of keeping the power moving to the back when it starts to understeer. I would say this is probably about what most people are going to be driving this, kind of like in a safe manner. That's why you don't have nice cars in the Midwest. You get plow trucks blasting the side of the car with salt and all the other shit that goes along with this. Yeah, I think the Santa Fe gets really good traction. I think the four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive system is pretty adept at keeping the power going to where it needs to get the best traction possible. Now, in terms of driving dynamics, the Santa Fe, the best thing about it is the way that this car gets off the line with the 2-liter turbo. It makes up for a lot of the shortcomings that the vehicle has in terms of, ride sophistication and quietness. This is not the quietest SUV on the road, and you can tell it's lagging behind in NVH and sound insulation, and the rear suspension has some weird, clunks over bad pavement, but it makes up for so much of it with a 2-liter turbo. It just feels so much quicker, namely when you're driving in a straight line, which most people are going to do in this vehicle. And I talk about the CX-5 a lot as being kind of like the benchmark SUV. And the biggest problem with that thing is it is slow as hell, and namely when you get into this. And it's almost like, well, if I don't care about handling, it would be something like this, because at least I can get going. Okay, so one of the nice things that the Santa Fe allows you to do is turn on 4-wheel lock. You can activate that, which all that is it the ECU stops deciding when to send the power to the back, and it just kind of locks the 4-wheel drive mode or all-wheel drive mode into a split, front to rear. I don't know what the percentage is. And then I'm turning off traction and stability control to see how this thing kind of gets around. If there's any rear bias in the handling of it. And it seems right away that, yes, you can get the car to kind of rotate a little bit, but it still wants to understeer. It still wants to do the things that on-demand all-wheel drive systems do, which, it's not a big deal. Nobody's going to drive it like this, but the point is you're probably going to have the confidence to get off on a bad road, to get in really deep snow and gravel and all that, and it's going to handle it pretty well. If you added some snow tires here, I think this would be really amazing for what it is. The last thing to note about the all-wheel drive system and the stability control system on here is it will reactivate when you get the thing totally out of control and the throttle goes crazy. It will cut back in the stability control system. Even though it says it's completely off, it's not completely off. And I think that's really the last thing to note. I think this is a really competent driving car. It's not the most refined in the market. It's not best in class, but if you have it, I think you're going to enjoy it. From the comfort to the speed of the 2-liter turbo, this is a vehicle that you probably should take a test drive in, and I would probably test drive the Tucson back to back, because you're going to see the difference in refinement from those two vehicles, and it might make your choice easier to decide what you're going to do from there. When you get on the inside of the Santa Fe, this is where you realize just how things are evolving so fast in the SUV market. You can totally tell this is Hyundai's last generation interior. There's still a heavy reliance on physical knobs, buttons, and switches. The overall interior shape of the steering wheel, the dash hood and the dash pods, all are kind of just more old school. And that's hard to say because this is only like a 6-year-old design, but it looks dated compared to other cars. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the biggest thing here is there are still physical buttons and knobs and controls for every single function. You don't have to use the touchscreen for everything. And that's a big pro, especially after getting out of a couple cars now that have switched over to touchscreen controls that don't work very well. So you're going to appreciate this once you get acclimated with where all the knobs and buttons are. Overall, everything in here works pretty well. It's intuitive. You're going to get in and kind of just figure out how to drive. There are some ergonomic issues, like the way some of the physical buttons are placed over here behind the steering wheel. You can't see it, and you actually have to go around and look at it for your drive modes, your traction control, your hill descent mode, your 4-wheel drive lock, steering wheel heater, all that shit is over here, and it's kind of hidden behind the wheel. I think it's poor placement. There's got to be a better way to do it. The second thing that you're going to notice, overall, the plastic textures are in here. They go from this like rubberized, kind of ruggedized feeling plastics on the door, the center stack. You have some soft touch materials. All of that is kind of non-offensive. It's mostly matte black, gray. It works well until you get to the dashboard, where somebody decided they were going to pull some scrap material out of the landfill with this plastic adhesive wood trim that they stuck on the vents and the center area of the dash, and it looks horrendously cheap. I don't know why I would tear this off. Hopefully you can option the car without this. One of the biggest things about a vehicle like this is comfort. Some of the creature comfort features. The seats are really, really well done in here. They're soft, they're supple, they're ventilated. The seat heaters are really quick to get going. Lower and upper feels really consistent. The seat coolers work pretty well. The back seats are very comfortable. You don't have center vents, but you have a side vent on the side, on the door, and you have seat heaters in the back, which are also on the door, which is a nice touch. Overall, the comfort in here I have zero issues with. This is one of the more comfortable, laid out interiors. And of course, Hyundai does a really good job on that. In terms of the infotainment and all that, you're gonna wanna check out my Tucson video because I cover it more in depth, and this has become the standardized touchscreen and infotainment that is pretty much in every Hyundai car or a slight variation of it, and you're even seeing it in the Kia. They're almost identical. The only last thing to note that I'm not a huge fan of is the interior illumination at night, and I've complained about this before. Hyundai continues to go with this ice blue LED backlit on all the buttons. Everything's ice blue, and then your gauge pod is pure white. The pure white looks so much better, and it just kind of clashes. They still haven't unified all their lighting in the car, and it's one of those attention to details that you don't see here. But overall, so many features in here, so many things that work really well. There's very little to complain about.